One of the biggest questions that I've been asked numerous times throughout this offseason is, can Alabama get back to the college football playoff, and can they compete for a national championship in year 2 under Kalen DeBoer? Well, today we're here to talk about why Alabama's a national championship contender and why you shouldn't be sleeping on them entering the 2025 season. Let's get started. What is up, everybody? Clint Lamb with A to Z Sports and Cover Crimson. So, one of the big questions that I've been asked numerous times this offseason is, can Alabama get back to the college football playoff? And can they compete for a national championship? And can they even win the national championship under second-year head coach Kalen DeBoer? And I'm here to tell you, when you look at everything that is the makeup of this football team and kind of where they're trending and how they've built things for 2025, I absolutely think they can compete for a national championship, and I think they can win a national championship. First of all, let's talk about the coaching staff and the continuity. The only coach that you lost off of this staff from last year is Colin Hitchler. But now you've moved Mo Linguist from being the cornerbacks coach to the defensive backs coach, and I still think you're getting an impact there as far as the recruiting and the on-field coaching. But let's talk particularly about the offense, because I think that's the most important side of the football when it comes to Alabama in 2025. Not only did you keep your offensive coordinator from a year ago in Nick Sheridan, so the continuity factor is there, but you've also gone out and you've added Ryan Grubb, one of the premier offensive minds in college football, who already has familiar with Kalen DeBoer. He already has familiarity with the system. So you're going to have a smooth transition while also maintaining your offensive play caller from last year, who now becomes your quarterback's coach. So your quarterbacks were on the roster last year, in particular Ty Simpson and Austin Mack. They're comfortable with Nick Sheridan. They've been around him. That relationship continues, but now you've got another presence, another offensive mind who is one of the best offensive minds in college football, who is going to be helping take your offense to a completely different level. But let's start taking this position by position, because I think, when you start looking at what it takes to win a national championship, you got to get effective play at a lot of positions. Not necessarily every position, but when you start talking about continuity, you start talking about talent, you start talking about experience overall, all of these various factors, they matter. And I think Alabama's got the perfect combination. Whether you're talking about, the offensive line, you've got 3 returning starters with Parker Brailsford, Caden Proctor, Jaden Roberts. You've got another couple of guys in Wilkin Formby and Geno Vandemark who have experience and have even started games at Alabama. And then you're adding in guys like Cam Dewberry, Texas A&M transfer, who has plenty of experience in the SEC. You talk about young players like Michael Carroll and Jackson Lloyd, 5-star, talent caliber players who are going to be able to solidify your depth a little bit. Just taking that one position group in particular, I think it's a perfect representation for where this Alabama roster is at. But really, you can go further than that. What was one of the big issues offensively last year? Really, you can look at a lot of the issues that Alabama had last year offensively and say that they addressed those questions. Whether you're talking about the inexperience of Nick Sheridan as a play caller, whether you're talking about the quarterback not necessarily fitting that Kalen DeBoer, Ryan Grubb, Nick Sheridan system, whether you're talking about the running back room, yes, they lost Justice Haynes, but guys like Daniel Hill were starting to step up. You've added A.K. Deere, a top 2 running back in this past recruiting cycle. You added Draylon Washington from the transfer portal, and you've got guys like Jam Miller and Rich Young who are ready to step up and be a part of that rotation as well. The wide receiver room's been upgraded. The tight end room, you're still going to get effective blocking, maybe not as good a blocking as you got in 2024, but what you're going to have is a catch-first tight end at that position. And while I don't think it's going to be a featured piece of the passing game, I do think that having that presence or that threat in this Ryan Grubb, Kalen DeBoer offense, it's going to create spacing and opportunities for other guys to go out there and make plays. So I think there's a very important element of the offense. You shift to the defensive side of the football. They've got experience coming back at all 3 levels. They've added talent to kind of fill out the depth, cornerback being a great example. Not only do you return arguably the best, starting duo of cornerbacks in college football in Damani Jackson and Xavier Brown, 2 former 5-star talents, but you've also gone to the transfer portal to add Cam Calhoun, and you've gone to the high school recruiting ranks to get Dijon Lee. And both of those guys look like they're going to be able to come in and make immediate impacts as depth pieces in that cornerback room. So if you have to work into that depth some, you are set up for success, continued high play by the fact that you've kind of filled out your depth and you've got impact players that go beyond just your starters. You can say the same thing about safety. Zay Mincy's experience last year is certainly going to help him as a rotational piece there. You talk about Ivan Taylor, who is a true freshman, top 100 recruit, who has the ability to kind of help you from day one, but he won't get pressed into playing time or extensive playing time from the jump. He's going to be given the opportunity to sit, learn, develop, and then play as he's comfortable in situations where he's comfortable before he's going to be asked to, be an impact player who's making consistent plays on Saturdays. But you have that depth option. He's another player where if you start getting injuries, you can work to him. You're going to be in good shape. Just across the board, and I could do this with every position, Alabama has talent, NFL caliber talent. They have great depth at a lot of these positions, most of these positions, and they've got the continuity factor, whether it be with the coaching staff or the individual players on the roster, that I think is going to make a substantial difference for Alabama in 2025.